All right, guys, this is my first time going live on Facebook. It's quite the experiment. This episode is all about brand identity. I'm wearing a very Russian hat to communicate the point that there is a visual language that we all use on a daily basis, and we form associations based off of visual cues. So when you see someone wearing a hat like this, you think Slavic. It's winter. There's a whole history of a community of people, a type of people wearing that thing. And likewise, doctors, they wear white lab coats. There's a whole history and millions of people who have worn a white lab coat, who have seen someone wearing a white lab coat, and we have associations with the type of person who wears that thing is useful in certain kinds of ways. There's a culture attached to the the item, the fashion item, the clothing item. I in the thumbnail that I have for this, you see a Las Vegas showgirl who is wearing a certain type of outfit that you automatically know, okay, I know where she works, I know where she's from. That type of person has a culture attached to them. There's a lifestyle that they live and subscribe to, and you can make all sorts of associations based solely on what they wear. Uh, just there's so many different types in the Muslim hijab. You know stuff about that person based immediately off of what they're wearing. And so that, I think, will frame the conversation about the importance of aesthetics, because we assume things about people automatically based off of what we are watching them wear. And when you're building a brand, when you're building a business, an online business, or any kind of business, you make these choices. You make choices about the uniform that you show up in every day and what your employees show up in every day. You make choices about your typography. So, the New York Times, very famous typography, the way that the font is laid out, and they have protected that type font for decades, over a century now. And so the way that your word mark is written has brand equity, brand value. So people, when they see your word mark, they're going to be either familiar with you or not. And so building up that familiarity is really important. There's monetary value in building up your familiarity of your word mark as well. Um, and you think of the big media publications, Newsweek magazine, that red and that boxy type font that they have. Coca-Cola, the flow of Coca-Cola. These brands know that their word mark is worth millions, and they would never just change it overnight. So being thoughtful about that typography matters. The simplest example is Comic Sans. Smart people know you cannot be taken seriously if you use Comic Sans. These are styles of typography. So if you want to be taken seriously, there are serious fonts that you need to use. If you want to be seen as playful, there are playful fonts that you would use. If you are Quentin Tarantino and you're making a Western kind of movie that's kind of an adventure, sexy crime, there's rougher, kind of more Western cowboy mafia fonts that you would use. And all of these choices build up to your brand. And to take time out of your day and not just like go with it, but to really like think about it and commit to a visual identity will help you build familiarity and build trust. Familiarity is really the goal. You want people to be familiar with you, because they're more likely to spend time and spend money with you if they feel like they can trust you, like you're always showing up consistently. They need to know you before they invest in you, period. And there's 5 things that capture people's attention. Like, we're all competing for attention on social media. And there's 5 things that really, like, stop the scroll and make people pay attention to you, and I have to attribute these 5 things to Daniel Priestley, who's the author of Key Person of Influence. Brilliant entrepreneur, great marketer, and he says, if you want people to, like, stop the scroll, they will stop and they will pay attention to something that is scary. This is what they did with COVID. They had bodies in the streets, and people go, "Oh, no, I have to be scared." I have issues with the whole making us afraid of an invisible enemy. I think that's very manipulative, but it works. That's why they do it. That is why they do it. So they show you something scary. I think this is what Marilyn Manson did from a marketing angle, like how he got everybody to pay attention to his music versus the other kind of metal bands, was he just had a look that was terrifying. So he scared people, and he made them talk about him and stop and pay attention. So that's one technique. Strange is another technique. So if you think about famous people who showed up in a strange way, Bjork, remember her? The Icelandic pop singer, she would show up in like a swan outfit that was made out of paper. Lady Gaga, she showed up in a meat dress, looking all weird. People are like, "What?" And it's strange, and so you stop the scroll, you get them to pay attention. That is a technique. Uh, Sexy is one that the music industry loves to use, but they use it in everything. The department stores, eh, even like coffee companies like Nespresso, they use a sexy man like George Clooney to sell their coffee, and it works. But you know what I mean? Like, Kim Kardashian, she's a billionaire. Her sister, like, was it Kendall? I don't really pay too much attention to them, but they were the youngest self-made billionaires, one of the Kardashians, because they just played up the sex appeal, got people to stop the scroll, and then they built this makeup company that was a $1 billion company. Skims, so that works. Beyonce sells a lot of records because she shows up looking sexy. So we don't actually all have that skill. So if you are not particularly sexy, that tool might not be available to you. You can hire models. That's why models make a lot of money, because they get people to pay attention. But that's the third. And then uh, um, familiar is the fourth. Familiar is like when you're walking down a busy street and you don't remember people, they pass you by. Like, if you're in New York, I used to live in New York, you are walking and you kind of have to tune everybody out. It's like an information pummeling as you're trying to walk down the streets of New York. But if you happen to see somebody that your brain like targets them, and you're like, "Oh, hey, Aaron, good to see you." You notice. And so you stop. Even if you're like in a rush on a busy street in a big city, you stop, you pay attention, you say hi. Your brain recognizes that. So that's what branding really is. It's like getting familiar, so that people notice you. And then the last one is I'm live and I forgot the last. It's patterns. Patterns, like, it's just repetitive. Like, it's not necessarily familiar, but it repeats so many times that your brain starts to pick up, like, why am I seeing this so often? And then you stop and you get curious. And so I actually think a technique in getting people to pay attention is beauty. So it's different than sexy, but it's equally effective. And I define beauty as evidence of a life-giving force. So this is my book, Beauty First Method, Instantly Communicate Your Value. And I get some sassy people who are like, oh, you're just so vain. You think, we can't all be pretty and attract an audience. And you're not, you didn't read my book, a-hole. You didn't read my book. Beauty is used by churches in architecture. So the way the gospel has spread in the way that the reason we have Western civilization at all is because some smart people figured out that if you make a really beautiful church and there's spires and it sticks up and above all the architecture, all the like mundane normal design, and you have something that stands out and it's pretty, that it'll attract attention. And so you get people, secular people, pagans, all the pagans kind of are like, I wonder what's inside there. And then they peek inside and they see all this beautiful stained glass and they hear this like beautiful music and they're like, oh, the choir, and it's so soothing and it's like peaceful. And so the churches have something called beauty, truth, and goodness. So you make something beautiful enough to attract people in. And then because it's a nice place, it's a nice environment, they stay long enough to hear the truth. The truth being like, name your message. Jesus died for your sins. It's bad to murder people. You shouldn't cheat on your spouse. Like you stay in long enough to hear these truths, and then that makes you good. Eventually you absorb it, and then you become a good person because you stayed long enough to hear the message. That's the point. And I think that with speakers, my business is called the Speaker Salon. So what I'm trying to do is help thought leaders go pro and get your personal brand up to a level where you're like just getting your message out there more effectively, building your email list, selling courses, writing books, doing all the things where your mission is satisfied. And I have seen so many really smart people blow their digital marketing, just blow it. And I don't want to see you fail. I want you to do it right from the beginning, build a good foundation. And so I have a little word. Oh, I should have looked up. I always forget what these are called. The acronyms that help you remember the message. This is my first live. I'll do better homework next time. Beauty, BEAUTY. The positive traits that you want to hone in on and exude in your presentations and behaviors consist of, starting with beauty. B is for beauty. E is for edifying and entertaining. A is for affirming and aspirational. U is for useful. T is for trustworthy. And Y is for your original story. So my book it lays it all out. And then first, so that it's called Beauty First Method. First is all the negative traits that you want to avoid as to protect your reputation and enhance your efforts so that you can excel. And you can remember it as first, do no harm. So you don't want presentations and aesthetics and messaging that is false. We don't want fake false stuff. Irritating. We don't want to be irritated when we listen to you or when we go into your environment or when we wear your product or use your product. It shouldn't be irritating. Ranting. Don't be ranting. S, don't be sloppy. T, don't have bad timing. So I teach on all these points, the good things that you should have and the bad things that you should avoid. So you want to start with a vision of what your brand should be, and the highest transformation that you can offer your people, the highest, most valuable transformation that you can offer your people. You want to start there, and then you want to build your whole business backwards. So um, if you were to work with someone one-on-one and just totally change their life, then what is the most expensive, rare, highly skilled service that you can provide to somebody? And so if you are a brain surgeon, girl, then it's probably a man. There's a few female brain surgeons in the world, but that's what you need to be doing. That's the high value one-on-one service transformation that you can offer the world. And then everything that we build from there needs to be in service of that high value transformation that you offer people. So for me, I'm an art school kid. My highest transformation that I can offer people is branding. I open up Photoshop, I get all my software, my um, creative software out, and I can help people with digital architecture. I make them look good online, basically. I never studied brain surgery. It's probably for the better. But so this book was made in service of that more high value offering that I perform up there. You might be let's do something absurd just for fun. So if you are a sniper, let's just say you're a sniper, and there's not very many people in the world who are willing to snipe. So you're unique in that you offer the service of sniping. Just go with it. Then all of the books, your website, your social media, you probably actually shouldn't have social media if you're a sniper, but there's unique choices. Um, there's different conferences and places that you need to spend your time. There's locations that you need to be spending time in order to make yourself visible to the right people and present yourself in a way where they would trust you enough to hire you for those services. And so beauty, I define as evidence of a life-giving force. And there's female beauty and masculine beauty. And masculine beauty is the life-giving force that you want to build evidence for would be in the realm of protection and provision. So that is masculine beauty. A beautiful man, we have physical evidence, visual evidence of their ability to provide and protect. And so if you are a financial guru, you need visual evidence of your abilities as a financial provider. If you are a medical doctor, you need physical evidence that of your ability to protect. And the white lab coat, the tools, you need to be seen with the tools that make you a trustworthy protector. If you are in the military, we need physical evidence that you have the tools and the aesthetics of someone who is capable of protecting in that realm. So, there's a physical element to that. There's a clothing element to that. There's gear. You need to be seen with certain gear. Um, the transgender men in the military, that was a visual. The reason that that's so repellent and why our Secretary of War is getting rid of transgender men in the military who present as women is because it's an automatic visual signal that we're actually not protecting anybody. So on the female side, physical evidence of being a life-giving force in the professional realm might mean different things. And so if a woman is in the healthcare field, She will need visual cues signaling that she is a life-giving force. So she'll need maybe medical equipment and gear. She'll need physical proof that her health is better than average so that people trust her with their health. There has to be cues and signals. Um, and then obviously with mating, like choosing how we choose our mates, it's like, we select people based off of how they think that cues as to how they can help us. And so when you are selecting a woman as a mate, like you want evidence of that she'd be a good mom, maybe she's smiling, different things professionally. Is she seen with the professionalism and equipment and the environment that is necessary to pull off that task, if that makes sense. So there is actually a lot to talk about in terms of how you present yourself online and the platforms you choose. There's a saying called the medium is the message. And so if you have to sell your services, the channel by which you show up is important. So I'm on YouTube. I'm on YouTube because there's a lot of education on here and there's people trying to solve problems on here. My politics are pretty neutral, but there's platforms that have very loaded politics. So the people who are hanging out on Blue Sky, that they're going to run liberal. The people who are choosing Truth Social as their social media platform, you can bet that they are Trump supporters, or they're at least got their eye on Trump. And so likewise, Rumble, the people who are on Rumble, they are champions of free speech, but it's a smaller pool. LinkedIn as a platform. LinkedIn is really where a lot of professionals are. They're not wasting their time. They're there to hire or be hired. The average income on LinkedIn is higher. So you have to pick your platform really carefully. And maybe you don't want to pick a platform because you're afraid of the internet. And in that case, now you've got visibility wounds that need to be overcome. So a lot of people, they will not get their message out and they will sit on their hands and not build a business because they're afraid of being seen. They're afraid of making mistakes that are forever recorded on video. I got the same problems, but visibility, you can brainwash yourself into overcoming fear of visibility. And you do that through hypnosis, subconscious reprogramming. I have a podcast episode on this. And essentially, I remember interviewing Dr. Stella Emanuel. She said that she was absolutely abused online by people who made fun of the way she talked and the way she looked and the things that she was interested in. But the fact that she went so viral and that she was so visible, it actually blew up her business and it made her very successful because so many people saw her, and enough people did like her and trust her that they ended up swarming to her business and to her clinic. And she didn't have time to remorse about the trolls because she was so busy actually helping people that she just didn't have time for the chat section. And so, in my workshop that I did with Ivory Hecker, she too catapulted into the spotlight. And she says that you just got to tune out and ignore the trolls and the people who make fun of you. You just got to tune them out. And so that's where I'm at. I'm not going to read your comment. Just kidding. I will read your comments. But if you're mean, I might block you. I might block you if you're mean. I'm allowed to do that. And you can do that. I do that on Twitter all the time. I have people on X I have a troll who's been following me for 10 years because I wrote some articles 10 years ago that were pretty bam, slam bam good, and they called out criminals. And then what happens when you call out criminals is some of them get mad that you exposed them for their evil. So I have had a troll following me for 10 years, mad because I exposed an evil that they think should be available. And I have that person blocked, but they still will troll my comments whenever I'm tagged somewhere. And essentially, I have brainwashed myself into believing that that's good. It's good because it gives my fans an opportunity to defend me. It boosts the algorithm because there's lots of comments going back and forth. And so I have brainwashed myself into understanding that controversy actually improves my profile. And at the end of the day, people are attracted to your energy. They remember how you made them feel, and it's it's not all just utilitarian and do you tick off boxes of usefulness. It's a community that you're building online, and you're attracting people who you want in your life, and you're trying to be an energetic match for the kind of people that you want in your life. And so as you as you show up and you present yourself and you're deciding what you write, what you talk about, what you wear, what colors, just think of it in terms of energy and frequency. And what you're doing is you you start with who you want in your life. You ask yourself, who do I want in my life, and what colors, music, architecture, typography, fashion, language, even food if you're throwing events. What are the frequencies and energies that that person would want to be around? And that's what you put out. You try to be an energetic match for that. And they will come. They will come. That is enough for the day. If you are interested in coming to Vegas with Ivory, Hecker, and I, the link is down below. If you are interested in joining my brand therapy Skool community, the link is down below. It's free to join. And if you want to read my book, I'm going to link it below. Thank you, and bye-bye.